Okay, so by now you've probably seen the overview I put together for the Time ADHX, but I bet what you're really interested in is my review, right? Okay, so if that's what you're looking for, you found it, so let's go. I've had the ADHX for just over 6 months now. It arrived in late December, and to be honest, I spared no expense on the build. The spec list looks like this. ENVE gravel bars and 3.4 AR wheels with Chris King ceramic bearings. There's more ceramic goodness from BBInfinite at the bottom bracket, and I went with a SRAM Red AXS 1x group set. It was a very wet winter here in California, so I threw on my Schwalbe G1 Bite tires, but since then, I've bounced around between several different tires, including some really nice Rene Hearses. Ultimately, I landed on the Tufo Speedero, which, as it turns out, is the holy grail tire for BWR San Diego and all the other local gravel rides and races around here. And it's also fast as hell on the road. I started out with an ENVE dropper post, but I recently swapped out for an Ergon CF Allroad post because the dropper was too stiff, too heavy, and I only used it about 3 or 4% of the time. I'm also going to be traveling with the bike in an Orucase, and that requires removing the seat post. Oh, and because I'm an old school marginal gainer and I spend most of my time in no man's land, I opted for a RIDE FARR carbon aero clip-on. Quick aside, the Ergon post is, quite honestly, one of the best upgrades I've ever made to a gravel bike. When installed properly, it provides a very surprising degree of shock absorption, especially over washboarded dirt roads, which we have a lot of out here. Anyway, back to the bike. The reason I spared no expense on this build is because my goal for this bike was to break the 5-hour mark at the BWR Wafer ride this year. That's the 75-mile version, not the big 140-mile one. I've been hovering in the 520 to 530 range for the last few years, and I thought I'd try to crack the top 20 in my age group while I was at it. And as a result of that, I've kind of been chasing the perfect BWR setup since my first time in 2018. In 2019 and 2021, I rode on road bikes with Schwalbe G1 Speed tires, and I knew that wasn't enough. So I was looking for something with clearance for slightly wider tires that was more road bike than gravel bike because a good portion of the Wafer course is paved. My first test of my ADHX was a local event called Gravel and Wine. That's wine with a WH, which is a fantastic 70-ish mile course right here in my backyard in Temecula wine country. That's the other kind of wine, the kind you drink. Anyway, it was about 2 months before BWR, so it gave me the opportunity to figure out my setup and to feel out the bike under race day conditions. And man, the ADHX did not disappoint. I thought I knew all the roads on the course, but as it turns out, the organizer is a bit of a sadist, and he sent us up some of the most brutal climbs he could find around here, like stuff you'd question going down on your mountain bike. The first one pitched off and on from 10 to 20%. On the dirt. I'd chosen the Rene Hearse Bon Jon tires, which are essentially 35C road tires with a tread like a vintage Vittoria. They did great, but what really blew my mind was how the ADHX felt at low speed and low cadence in the granny gear on those steep climbs. There was an unexplainable power transfer bordering on feeling like it has a pedal assist motor and traction and stability for days. And guess what? The other sides of these climbs were not any better. Several of them were very steep and the road quality was horrible. Chip and seal roads with giant potholes everywhere. But the ADHX was telepathic when descending. Hands in the drops, fingers on the brake levers, swerving and bunny hopping like I was riding a downhill bike on technical single track. I mean, sure, it's an all-road bike, so there's a lot of vibration, but through it all, the bike maintained a level of composure I really didn't expect. And because of that, I got a little cocky and double flatted while blasting down a descent at mile 40. And then after 30 minutes of trying to repair the sidewall tears, I had to call the wife for a ride home. And that was the end of my love affair with Rene Hearse tires. I found the Tufos and I haven't looked back. Fast forward 2 months and I'm on the starting line at BWR San Diego. A pre-ride the day before proved that 39-ish PSI front and rear was the perfect choice, and everything else felt perfectly dialed. And it was. I had 0 mechanicals, no flats, and was able to sustain higher average speeds through the rough stuff than previous years. The unexplainable power transfer felt magical on every climb, and 5 hours and 9 minutes later, I knew I'd chosen the right bike when I crossed the line 16th in my age group. And now that I've cracked the code on the bike, I'm going for sub 5 hours in 2024. Hopefully that'll get me in the top 10, and I'll definitely do it on board the ADHX. Listen, if you have any questions, drop me a line in the comments. If you want to know more about the ADHX or how it handled on that day, what I felt, I'm always open for the conversation. And if you feel like it, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the channel a lot.